Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Pachari Jaya
Krishna. Welcome everybody for today's Sunday program. So, nice sunny day, isn't it? Temperature soaring up. So today we'll be discussing from Bhagavad Gita as it is, and later on we can, it's a surprise, we'll be discussing some more things as well, but we'll start with Bhagavad Gita as it is. So I would request everyone to please have a copy of Bhagavad Gita before we start. Perfect. So we'll be reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, and chapter number 4, text number 18. So in my book it's page number 244. Okay. So before we start, we have these invocation prayers which we chant before we discuss from the Vedic scriptures. This is to invoke auspiciousness, before we read Vedic scriptures. So, it's the last 3 lines which you see on the board. So, if you all can repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Great. So, chapter 4, text number 18. So we'll say the word-to-words first of the Sanskrit, and then we can say each sentence. So if you all can repeat after me. Karmani,
Karmani,
Akarma,
Akarma,
Yaha,
Yaha,
Ashet,
Ashet,
Akarmani,
Akarmani,
Cha,
Cha,
Karma,
Karma,
Yaha,
Yaha,
Saha,
Saha,
Buddhiman,
Buddhiman,
Manushyeshu,
Manusyeshu,
Saha,
Saha,
Yuktaha,
Yuktaha,
Krishna Karma Krit.
Krishna Karma Krit.
Okay, so we'll be reciting each sentence now. Karmanya karma yaf pashyet.
Karmanya karma yaf pashyet.
Akarmani cha karmaya.
Akarmani cha karmaya.
Sabuddhiman manushyeshu.
Sabuddhiman manusyeshu.
Sayukta karma krishna.
Sayukta Krishna Karma Krit.
We'll say it once more. Yeah, you're all naturals. That's why taking a lot of things. Right. Okay. Let's give it one more try. Karmanya karmaya pashyet.
Karmanya karmaya pashyet.
Akarmani cha karmayaha.
Akarmani cha karmaya.
Sabuddhiman manusyeshu.
Sabuddhiman manusyeshu.
Sayukta krishna karma krit.
Sayukta Krishna Karma Krit.
One more time. Hold your breath. Karmanya karmaya pashyet.
Karmanya karmaya pashyet.
Akarmani cha sarvashaha.
Akarmani cha karmaya.
Sabuddhiman manusyeshu.
Sabuddhiman manusyeshu.
Sayukta krishna karma krit.
Sayukta Krishna Karma Krit.
Is anyone brave enough to give it a try?
Karmanya karmaya pashyet.
Karmanya karmaya pashyet.
Akarmani cha karmaya.
Karmani cha karmaya.
Sabuddhiman
Manushyeshu
Sayukta Krishna Karmakrit.
Sayukta Krishna Karmakrit. To give it a try. Okay, no worries. That's fine. Any ladies would like to give it a try?
Karmanya karmaya pashet.
Karmanya karmaya pashyet.
Akarmani charma karmayaha.
Akarmani cha karmaya.
Sabuddhiman manusheshu.
Sabuddhiman manusyeshu.
Sayukta Krishna karmakrit.
Sayukta Krishna Karmakrit. What else would you like to give a try? Perfect, no worries. So we'll go through the word-to-word translations. Please repeat after me. Karmani,
Karmani,
in action.
in action.
Akarmana,
Akarmana,
in action.
in action.
Yaha,
Yaha,
one who.
one who
Pashyet,
pashyet,
observes.
observes.
Akarmani,
Akarmani,
in inaction.
in action.
Cha,
Cha,
also.
also.
Karma,
Karma,
through direction.
through action.
Yaham,
Yaha,
one who.
one who
Saha,
Saha,
he.
he,
Buddhiman,
Buddhiman,
is intelligent.
intelligent.
Manushyeshu,
Manusheshu,
in human society.
in human society.
Saha,
Saha,
he.
he,
Yuktaha,
Yuttaha,
is in a transcendental position.
is in a transcendental position.
Krishna karma krit,
Krishna Karmakrit,
although engaged in all activities.
although engaged in all activities.
Okay, so just read out the translation. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent along men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. Okay? So please repeat after me. One who sees inaction in action
One who sees inaction in action,
and action in inaction
and action in inaction,
is intelligent among men,
is intelligent among men,
and he is in the transcendental position,
and is in a transcendental position,
although engaged in all sorts of activities.
although engaged in all sorts of activities.
Right. So I'll just read out the paper. A person acting in Krishna consciousness is naturally free from the bonds of karma. His activities are all performed for Krishna. Therefore, he does not enjoy or suffer any of the effects of work. Consequently, he is intelligent in human society, even though he is engaged in all sorts of activities for Krishna. Akarma means without reaction to work. The impersonalist ceases fruitive activity out of fear, so that the resultant action may not be a stumbling block on the path of self-realization. But the personalist knows rightly his position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness. Because everything is done for Krishna, he enjoys only transcendental happiness in the discharge of this service. Those who are engaged in this process are known to be without desire for personal sense gratification. A sense of eternal servitorship to Krishna makes them immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of work. Okay? Om Krishna Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Gaurani Chari Arvishishunyavi Paschakya Deshakarni Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. So, it's an interesting verse, isn't it? One who says action in inaction. And inaction in action is one who is situated in transcendental position and is intelligent. So, I hope most of you are familiar with Bhagavad Gita as it is, isn't it? Has everybody heard of Bhagavad Gita? So it's a conversation between two personalities, right? One is Krishna, and who is speaking to? Arjuna, right? So Arjuna was in a bewildered condition, because he has to fight against his family members, and that was a religious war to establish a religious king, righteous king. So, but because he has forgotten his actual identity as a servant of Krishna, he was bewildered. So the whole Bhagavad Gita is just to make Arjuna remind his original identity, which is that he is a servant of Krishna. He is not his body. First thing is he is not his body, but he is a spirit soul, and his relationship with Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the process by which Arjuna can surrender into Krishna. Right, 3 things. One is to let him know his identity, what is his actual identity is, and the second thing is what is his relationship with Krishna and how to surrender to Krishna. So the whole Bhagavad Gita is based on these 3 things. And if you don't come to this conclusion of surrendering into Krishna after reading the whole Bhagavad Gita, it's like we haven't understood anything in Bhagavad Gita. So that's the essence, or that's the conclusion we need to reach after reading Bhagavad Gita. So here we have bewildered Arjuna, who is hesitating to fight. He doesn't know what to do on the battlefield. And the first thing Krishna does to Arjuna is to remind him of his identity. Krishna reminds him that Arjuna is lamenting for the body, but he doesn't know that he is not the body. And the people whom he is fighting against, he is not killing them personally, but he is killing their material bodies. So, this should not be taken as an excuse that, this killing is just killing of the material body, is not the soul, so we can just go on killing anybody. That's not a thing. So Prabhupada in one of the purports to the verses in the 2nd chapter, he writes that, although, Arjuna has to fight with this idea that he's not his body, and, whomever is killing is just, it's just killing the body, but this is not to encourage the idea of violence, but to remind oneself that violence is only necessary in certain situations. When it comes to establishing religious principles, violence is encouraged. Otherwise, in the whole Vedic literatures, violence is never encouraged. It's considered a sin. To kill not just a human being, but even to kill an animal is considered to be sinful. But on a religious ground, it is a duty of the Kshatriya. Arjuna belongs to the Kshatriya class of persons. So for them, it's their duty to establish religious principles, even to the extent of killing another person. The word Kshatriya in itself means one who gives protection from harm. So, to the extent they can go to give protection is they are even allowed to kill another person. So Arjuna is being reminded that he is not this body, and then now he has to act on the battlefield. So Bhagavad Gita speaks about 5 things, out of which one is karma. I hope everybody has heard of karma, right? What's karma? Sorry?
Your actions.
Actions, right. So, karma means actions, yes. The activities which we perform. And whatever actions we perform, we get a resultant reaction. It's Newton's 3rd law. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So, karma is like that. So, the whole of Bhagavad Gita, the 5 things are described. Out of the 5, the karma is very special because out of these 5 things, karma is the only thing which is temporary. So karma, you do an action you get an opposite reaction, and you experience that reaction, and then the karmic reaction is terminated. Then, and in this way, we, in our whole existence, we keep undergoing our experiencing these karmic reactions. So we see it in our own lives also. Sometimes we are very happy. So this happiness is because of the karmic reactions, that we have done something good, and the result of this action is that it's giving happiness. And sometimes in our lives, or probably most of the time, we suffer too. So this suffering is also because of our karmic reactions. So this whole network of karma is very intricate. It's very difficult to understand, and our whole existence is built on these reactions of karma. Sometimes we suffer, sometimes we enjoy, sometimes we suffer. But one special nature in this material world is whether the resultant reaction is pious or sinful, but it ultimately ends in suffering. So that's the speciality of this material world. Either if you suffer, you anyway suffer. You're suffering. That's miserable. But even if you enjoy, that enjoyment also leads to suffering. It terminates in suffering. So that's this material world. That's why in Bhagavad Gita we find that this material world is described as Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. Dukhalayam means it's the place where it's full of miseries. So here, this is a world full of miseries, and another nature of this world is everything is temporary. Your miseries are also temporary, your happiness is also temporary, everything. That by nature, this whole world is temporary. And this manifestation in itself is temporary. I think I gave my key to one of the devotees. Is there? Okay. Right, so here we are in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Actually, if you see, 3rd, 4th, 5th chapters of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks extensively about karma yoga. So Bhagavad Gita it's all about yoga. Yoga means how we can link ourselves with Supreme Krishna. So here, how by performing activities we can be linked with Krishna. That's being explained here. So here we are. This chapter is very interesting. Krishna says that the same knowledge which Krishna is saying in this Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has told this knowledge millions and millions of years ago to the sun god, whose name is Vivaswan. So, and this Vivaswan has told this knowledge to his son called Ikshvaku. And Ikshvaku has given this knowledge to his son called Manu. So in this way, this is a traditional way of transferring knowledge. This chain is called disciplic succession, where an authority gives this Vedic knowledge to his disciple, and his disciple, in due course, he becomes the spiritual master. He takes the authoritative position, and he gives this knowledge to his disciple. And in this way, the Vedic knowledge has been carefully preserved and carefully transferred to the qualified disciple by the spiritual authorities. So, as it is the nature of this material world that everything is temporary, it so happened that this chain has got terminated. So the whole Vedic knowledge, it got lost. So at that point, Krishna, whose duty is to re-establish the principles of religion. Actually in the same chapter, Krishna says that why he appears to re-establish the principles of religion. So Krishna, in order to re-establish the principles of religion, he has given this Bhagavad Gita again using Arjuna as an instrument. Arjuna, by nature, is a devotee of Krishna. He cannot expect a warrior like Arjuna to be in such a bewildering situation. Arjuna has fought so many wars before this. He single-handedly defeated the whole Kauravas, whom he is fighting against. But in this particular situation, he was put into bewilderment, just to be used as an instrument by Krishna to give this message of Bhagavad Gita so that we can be benefited. Right? So, in this way, the Bhagavad Gita was told again, and in the middle, Arjuna gets a bit confused. It's like, Because Arjuna, Krishna tells Arjuna that it's because you are my friend and my devotee, and I'm giving this knowledge unto you. But Krishna is saying that Arjuna is his friend. So friends means almost the same age, right? You can establish friendship between equals. But before that, Krishna just told that I just gave the same knowledge of Bhagavad Gita to Sangha. So how is it possible that, we are the same age, you were born just at the same time when I was born, and then how is it that you gave this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita millions and millions of years ago to Sangha? It's something contradictory. So it just struck Arjuna. So then Krishna told that what is the difference between an ordinary living entity and the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna. So it is, we take birth, Krishna also appears again and again. But the difference is, we forget our previous lives. We are made to forget so that we can enjoy this body. But Krishna remembers all his previous lives. That's the difference. And so that's the significant difference between a living entity and Krishna. That Krishna is all knowledgeable. That is the nature of the absolute truth. That he knows everything, past, present, and future. So here in this chapter, Krishna is telling that Krishna is explaining karma. So we do karma, Krishna also does karma. But the different, just like we take birth, Krishna also takes birth, but there's a difference in his birth and our birth. Similarly, we also do karma, Krishna also does karma, but there's a difference. So that's again explained in this same chapter, that Krishna's birth and his activities, or Krishna's janma, which is birth, and Krishna's karma, are all transcendental. And if we understand them as transcendental, then with that understanding we can go back to Krishna. But if we think that, just as we are doing karma, Krishna is also doing karma, then what happens is, we become entangled in this material world. Like that. So this whole material world, this karma is being performed by so many people. And even the society is structured in such a way that every individual is performing karma in a particular way. And this whole society, by which everybody can perform their karma or activities by their natural inclination, has been called as Varnashrama society. So Krishna made the society in such a way that everybody works according to their natural inclinations. So Varnashrama society consists of 4 divisions, which is Kshatriya, yes. So these are the 4 varnas. So the human beings are classified into 4, in the matter of their occupation. So some people are natural inclination to Brahmanical activities like studying of the Vedic literatures, performing worship, and things like that. So they are classified as Brahmanas in the society. And there are some people who have natural qualities of administration, chivalry. They want to do something good in the society. They want to bring justice in the society. So these kind of people are put into the administrative class of the society, which are called Kshatriyas. And then we have some people who have this natural inclination of doing some business, earning some money, expanding things and things like that. So environment, health protection, agriculture. So some people are naturally born with these qualities. So these people are being classified as Vaishyas. And there are some people, who can neither study things properly, who do not have these administrative qualities, who cannot do any business or agriculture or anything like that. But they are good at doing things what they are told to do. And these people are called as Shudras. And in Kali Yuga, we see that this present age in which we are living is called Kali Yuga. So in this age, everybody, most of the people are Shudras in the sense that they are expert in doing what they are told to do. So in this way, Krishna arranged the society in such a way that everybody works according to their natural inclination. So, and Krishna says that it's not just the society is built in that way and everybody is working. When Krishna appears, he himself also follows this, this Varnashrama society which he has established. But the difference is, again there comes the difference, that Krishna is not bound to his actions, whereas we are bound to our actions. So here, this verse is very interesting. So let's come to this verse now. So here in this verse, Krishna says that, one who says inaction and inaction and action and inaction. So there is this tricky way of putting words. There's something called action and there's also something called inaction. So when you speak of karma, the karma is again classified into three. So one type of karma is called akarma, and another type of work is called vikarma. So, and there's another called just karma. So, akarma means, the activities which do not give us any fruitive reactions. And then we have vikarma. Vikarma means these activities which are against the Vedic scriptures. In later words, we can call these activities as sinful activities. So here, Krishna uses the word inaction and action. So here, the word inaction refers to akarma in the sense the activities which are prescribed by the Vedic literatures. And so what Krishna is saying here is, one who sees akarma in karma and karma in akarma. It's a little bit tricky, right? Anyway, I'll explain to you. So, I'm just saying this verse. So, one who says action in inaction and inaction in action is a man who is intelligent. That's what Krishna is saying. And he's transcendental. He's not bound to this material. So, what is Krishna meaning here? What is this? Inaction, action, action, inaction. So, one who says inaction in action. So there are two classes of people. One is the devotees and the other is the impersonalists. So the devotees are devotees of Krishna, who engage in devotional service of Krishna, who dedicate their lives for Krishna, and who do everything for Krishna. So these are people who are called as devotees, who are just involved in satisfying Krishna, giving pleasure to Krishna. On the other hand, we have another group of people called impersonalists. So these impersonalistic people, they believe that God has no form, and whomever we are seeing, they are nothing but parts and parcels of God, in the sense God split himself into the living entities. And when the living entities are like minute gods, and when they realize that and they purify themselves, then they can become God again. So these are like the impersonalistic kind of people whose aim of life is just to become God again. So that's their conception, which is not true. But we do see this kind of people everywhere. So this verse is, we need to have this strong understanding of these two classes of people if you have to understand this verse. So devotees, when they do any activity, those kind of activities are called inaction, right? So that's called akarma, because these activities does not bind a devotee to this material world. But when an impersonalist, he is also endeavoring to do akarma. He doesn't want himself. He also wants to do inaction. But unfortunately, what happens is all his inactions are actions. That's because he's trying to achieve something based on his mental speculation. He's thinking something, and based on his concoction, he's performing his activities. So, although he's performing activities which he's thinking to be inaction, are actually action. In the sense, he's thinking that whatever activities he's performing, he's not binding himself to this material world, but in reality they are binding. So when Krishna says here that one who sees inaction, one who sees action in inaction, and inaction in action, in a sense is referring to two classes of people here. So the devotees are doing inaction, but the mundane world sees that devotees doing an action. And they think that, oh, a devotee is bound, but a devotee is not bound. Whereas, okay, I think I'm just juggling words here. If everybody is confused, I'm sorry. So let me make it a bit more clear. Okay, so I'll put it in this way. So, in this material world, why do we take birth again and again? It's because of our contaminated consciousness. And this contaminated consciousness, it develops our next body in the sense like, and at the time of death, whatever we think of, that gives us the next body. So suppose if a person is thinking of an animal, a dog, so, I like my dog, I live for it, and you're always thinking about your dog. So at the time of death, you just think about your dog, and that is the consciousness which you're having at the time of death. And this consciousness, will result in giving that person a dog's body in his next life. This is how the karmic reactions work. So, but a devotee, he tries not to think of any material objects, but he always tries to think of Krishna at the time of death. So, so Krishna says that one who thinks of Krishna at the time of death, he goes to the planet of Krishna. So here, two examples. What is the activity here? It's thinking. So, a materialistic person, he thinks that, he thinks of something bad and he gets a body. And a devotee thinks of Krishna and he gets liberated. But between these two, there's this class of impersonalists. These are not materialistic people, but these are like the kind of people who are trying to be spiritualists, but bewildered to be material. Do you get me? So these are the kind of people. They think that, okay, at the time of death, if I think of a dog, I become a dog. Let me stop thinking. So that they consider as inaction. But so that is what is inaction in their conception. So let's get back now. So the activities, right? Am I confusing a lot? I feel like
I think I understand it.
you understand it,
I
right?
think so, yeah.
Because it's like I'm just using the same words in different ways, just make people understand. Okay.
Maybe you can give an example of day-to-day activities.
Yes. Yeah, I'm very good. So what happens is, okay. So, we prepare food preparation, right? And then, we say that, okay, whatever food stuff is not offered to Krishna, it gives a karmic reaction. And we have to undergo the reactions of the karma, right? So what do devotees do? They offer the food stuff to Krishna, and then they take it. Then the prasadam has been purified. But these are they are this middle, these impersonalistic people. They think that, eating leads to bondage, so let's stop eating. Their conception is not to purify what they are eating, but to stop the activity. So even in terms of mind, actually in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada mentions the same thing that, thinking leads to bondage, so let's stop thinking. Mind is restless, so let's stop the activities of the mind. So that is what is yoga to these impersonalistic people. But for a devotee, what he does is, he really does not stop thinking, but he thinks about Krishna. He purifies his thoughts. Prabhupada gives an example here that, a materialistic person, he wants to build a building just like the other person, Anyway, he wants to build a building. But for a devotee, he thinks that a devotee might also desire to build a building, but that's not for him, but that's for Krishna's enjoyment. So that's the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee and an impersonalist. An impersonalist thinks that let's not build anything, because by building we'll be bound. Okay. So, right. So now I'll explain this first. So, just as, action, right? So let's take thinking as an example. So, thinking is an action. So a devotee is thinking. So he's engaged in an action. But although he's engaged in an action, what he's doing is inaction. So that's saying action in inaction. Or saying inaction in action. So he's doing an action, but what he's doing is inaction. So that's a devotee. But a impersonalist, he's not thinking at all, He's not doing any action. He's in his mind, he's doing inaction. But actually, he's doing an action, because to not think of anything is also a thought. Do you get me?
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's thinking to not think anything. That in itself is thinking. So that's what he said. One who says action in inaction. In a sense, he's thinking that he's doing inaction, but actually, he's doing action. He's thinking that he should not think anything. But regular devotee is not doing all this nonsense that he does not be of thoughtless or anything, but is thinking of Krishna. So that's what this Krishna is saying, that this is the difference. We are engaged in so many activities, eating, sleeping, mating and defending, But for a devotee, all these activities are purified, because whatever he eats that which is offered to Krishna. Whenever he sleeps so that he can engage himself in the service of Krishna. And similarly, all the other activities. So from a mundane perspective, these are all activities. A devotee is engaged in these activities. But in reality, a devotee is inactive. He's not bound to these activities. Whereas the materialistic person, although he's doing the same activities, he's bound. Yeah.
So in other words, all the devotees' actions are done to the pleasure of Krishna.
Yes. That's why they call it inactions. So, like that. Okay. So, actually I wanted to speak some more, but we are almost coming to the end of this session. So, so that is the difference between a non-devotee and a devotee. Whatever a devotee does, it's all in relation to Krishna, for the pleasure of Krishna. And a devotee does not do anything for his own sense gratification. That's what Prabhupada says here. Those who are engaged in the process are known to be without desire for sense gratification. The sense of eternal servitorship to Krishna makes one immune to all sorts of reactionary elements of work. So a devotee is not bound to the reactions of his work, but is completely liberated. Because Krishna consciousness keeps a devotee immune to all the reactions of one's work. So, devotional service, what is devotional service? In the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami gives the definition of devotional service as Sarvopadi nirmuktam tat paratveda nirmalam krishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhaktirukshite. What is devotional service? Devotional service starts with, disidentifying ourselves from all these things which are material. And so all these materialistic identifications which we have, they are all upadis, designations. So devotional service starts just like how Krishna is teaching Arjuna. Give up your identification with this body and identify yourself as my servant. So the devotional service starts with identifying ourselves as a servant of Krishna. And to be purified of all things which are material, sinful activities, not being engaged in any sinful activities. And what's next is engaging ourselves for the pleasure of the master of the senses, which is Krishna. So we are engaged in serving or pleasing Krishna's senses. That is called devotional service. Can you get it? First is to misidentify ourselves with all the material things and to identify ourselves as the servant of Krishna, and to purify ourselves from all sinful activities and engaging in activities by which we can please Krishna. We can please Krishna who is the master of all our senses. If we give pleasure to him, that is called devotional service. And the whole Bhagavad Gita is to make us come to this conclusion that we are servants of Krishna, and we are parts and parcels of Krishna, and we need to surrender unto Krishna. So this knowledge about who we are, what is our real identity, and what is our relationship with Krishna is called Sambandha Jnana. Sambandha Jnana means what is our relationship. Then, and this essential Sambandha Jnana we get from Bhagavad Gita. When we have this knowledge about who we are, what is our relationship, and what is the aim of life, which is to surrender unto Krishna, then comes the next thing, which is called Abhidheya. Abhidheya means the process by which you apply this Sambandha Jnana. Say, okay, you got to know who you are. You are a servant of Krishna. You need to surrender unto Krishna. How you need to surrender unto Krishna is the process. It is called some Abhidheya. And this knowledge and how we can surrender, the process by which we can surrender is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. We have another book like Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is the text spoken by Krishna, but we have Srimad Bhagavatam, which is this text spoken about the Krishna, and it is an immense literature containing 12 cantos, 18 volumes, and it's all about to teach us how we can surrender unto Krishna. How we get the pastimes of so many kings, so many devotees, who teach us by example how we can surrender unto Krishna. Who teaches us that although we are engaged in action, but in actuality it's inaction. They show by example. All the kings who are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, they're like common people like us. They are doing their own works, but still they are devotees of Krishna. They are engaged in service as devotees of Krishna. So, and actually I wanted to take the lecture in one way, but I took it in another way, just to make sure that things are more and more clear. And now I'm running out of time. So, right. So that's what Krishna is saying here in this verse. So it's very important for us to understand the different kinds of devotees. So we have these impersonalists, and these people, impersonalistic people, they're not very rare in the society that you find them. It's quite very, very often you find such people in society. Indeed, I just met one person right in the temple last week. Actually, he was staunch. He was strong on me, but anyway, I was a bit kind on him. But these kinds of people are not here, and they have this idea that they are doing something spiritual in life, but in actuality they are not doing anything spiritual. It's just their mental imagination, that they are doing something spiritual and something, it's just not binding them to this material world. But actually, in reality, everything is binding them to this material world. It's just that they are in an illusion. So it's the whole process of Krishna consciousness is just to train us to come to this understanding of seeing action and inaction, and inaction as inaction, and inaction and inaction. Is everybody clear about this? Right? Right?
Yes. Inaction you would explain. Doing an activity, and when you're doing this activity as a performance, as an offering to Krishna, is inaction. So basically, inaction in inaction.
Yeah.
But what is the second? How about the second part? Action in.
Yeah. Action. Yeah. That's what I was saying, bro. This impersonalistic people, they think that they are doing inaction, but in actuality, what they are doing is action. So in inaction, we are saying action.
So that is the first aspect.
For a devotee, is what
so
is
basically,
yeah.
One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction.
Yeah.
So when you say action in inaction, what exactly you mean?
Right.
So karma in a karma.
Yeah, this is action in inaction, right? So this is for the impersonalists,
Oh.
So they are thinking that they are doing something in action, but it's what they are doing is action. So a devotee is intelligent enough to identify that what this guy is doing, is thinking is as inaction. It's not inaction, it's actually action.
So basically, what this sloka means, one who is able to differentiate the actual karmic and akarmic activity.
Yes. Yes. So that's what the whole point is. So a devotee is doing, spiritual activity. So it's just understanding that, a devotee is engaged in the same activities as a materialistic person. But what a devotee is doing is completely, it's not doing any material reactions. It's not binding him to this material. A devotee is also eating, a non-devotee is also eating. But when a devotee eats, he gets freed from these reactions. But when a non-devotee, or one who is not a devotee of Krishna, when he eats, he's bound to these karmic reactions. Even just to produce food, a lot of karmic activity takes place. A lot of animals are killed, and the food which comes out, it comes with all these karmic reactions. And when we eat those food, they become subjected to all this karma which has been put into it, which comes along with it. So that is why we encourage devotees, and whatever prasadam which we serve, it's all offered to Krishna, and sometimes we call it as karma-free food, because you are not bound by eating it. Just by eating, you can be liberated. So that's this philosophical discussion. So, are there any questions, reflections, or comments?
Yes, Krishna, thank you for the very nice lecture. I just had a reflection about how it's nice what you said, like devotees, even though they're performing actions, so every action is called karma. In every action there's karma. So vikarma is negative karma, so bad karma, and sometimes we have positive karma. But because of this karma, we still need to take birth again. Whether it's for good karma, whether it's for bad karma, we still need to take birth again to get the benefits for good karma, or to pay for our bad karma. But actions performed in Krishna consciousness is a karma. So there's no karma.
Yeah.
So it's very nice to reflect on this, because following the instructions of Krishna is actually not binding. It's not binding. So it's freeing us from all this. Yes, I was just reflecting on this, and I'm thinking that it's nice, and we need to take it seriously, because it's not something cheap that we're getting.
Yeah.
Getting the possibility to do that and being able to achieve this through the instruction of Krishna, it's not something everybody gets. It's not cheap, basically.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, when we understand it, we won't take Krishna consciousness for granted. We take it really serious. Krishna consciousness. Right. Just go.
I was just thinking, because you said you work in computers.
Yeah.
So that, to me, looks like you're doing actions. But you're practicing Krishna consciousness. So how is that how is that an action? You're working for a tech company.
Right. Right. So this is also a difference. So we just as I said, devotees are also engaged in so many activities. Non-devotees are also engaged in so many activities. Sometimes devotees are also working. Non-devotees are also working. But it is the consciousness by which a devotee works. And I'm not. Let me not put myself as a devotee. I'm speaking in general, not just referring, because you referred to me, but I'm speaking in general. So, right. So a devotee, whatever he does, just like I said, in order for people to perform karma, Krishna has established this varnashramas in a society where, based on one's inclination, one performs one karma. So actually, this is how traditionally the karma was performed. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the second chapter of the first canto, Krishna says, verse Ataf kumbe Vasuśrestha Varnashrama Vibhagasha Svanishtitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haridosha. So, in this Varnashrama dharma, or in modern way, our jobs and things and so on, everybody is performing these works, but a devotee performs it for the pleasure of Krishna. So the end result is different. So for a non-devotee, when he works, he gets the reactions or the results of his activities. So how he utilizes it is for his own sense gratification. So that binds the non-devotee to this material world. But when a devotee, he works, even mentally, he knows that he is working for the satisfaction of Krishna. The word which should go on in a devotee is Samsiddhim Haridosha. That whatever I'm doing it for the satisfaction of Krishna. Whether it be work, I'm doing it for the satisfaction of Krishna. When it comes to the results of the work, this will be engaged in the service of Krishna. So that's what differentiates the devotee from non-devotee. So for a devotee, whatever he does is for the pleasure of Krishna. So in that way, devotee is not bound. So whether it be a computer science job or some engineering work, anything like that, is the consciousness that a devotee carries and how he wants to engage everything in Krishna's service. So that's what differentiates the devotee. Is that okay?
Do you have any experience yourself of feeling detachment whilst you're working?
That's a tough to answer. I'm happy that my boss is not here.
You can convey the message.
Watching you online.
Yeah. Anyway, so, of course there are so many things which we can consider. Just like, there's this concept of Yukta Vairagya, which Rupa Goswami teaches us. Like, Anasakta situation. It's like we are doing our works. It's like we are going a bit further now in philosophy. It's like, knowledge and detachment are very important for spiritual life. And in material world, we always need to be detached when it comes to materialistic things. So, sometimes devotees ideally are not, are expected to be doing material activities. They need to render themselves fully in Krishna's service. But we see in the modern day society that it's not possible because the society has changed. We are not living in a Varnashrama society where, although we are doing the activities of Varna and Ashrama, but everything can be linked to Krishna. But the society is very complex now. It's like, in the sense, the Varnashrama society has collapsed. So it's in a different way now. The times have changed. So we are all doing our jobs. It's all different. But at the same time, we have to be detached. So the Varnashrama society is made in such a way that one is naturally detached. But the modern day society, because it's not built on the basis of Varna and Ashrama, there are more scope for us to be attached to our work. So in that regard, Rupa Goswami has given us this advice of Yukta Vairagya, in the sense that, alright, you have to do your job, you have to do, activity, you have to be in a materialistic society, you have to associate with those who are not devotees of Krishna. But we need to intelligently apply these principles of Yukta Vairagya, which means, it follows based on these principles of Anasaktasya Vishayan, Yatharham Upayuntataha, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, Yuktam Vairagya Muchiti. In the sense that, we are in this materialistic society, we have these non-devotee things, we have so many things which is not conducive for Krishna consciousness. So our aim should be to not be attached to these materialistic elements which are not Krishna conscious. But we still have to perform our duty. But we should not be attached to it. But, and whatever we are doing, or whatever in which we are in contact, we need to see it in context with Krishna. So, whether it be, in my case, I have my job, so whenever I'm working, I need to be prepared that I'm just working myself so that I can maintain myself, so that I can engage in the service of Krishna. So that's the end result. So, I'm working. It's not because I want to purchase a Lamborghini or a big bungalow or things like that, but I can maintain myself so that I can engage myself in the service of Krishna. So I try to kind of maintain such a mentality. I'm not liberated soul, that I'm completely detached, even in midst of so many, disturbances, materialistic associations. I'm not affected by it. I am affected, but I remind myself as much as all the time. So that's what I can say. I cannot give any particular example or things like that, but I try to answer it in a holistic way.
To add to it, I guess, it's not the working itself is not spiritual activity or material activity, but the conscious makes that activity that is spiritual or material. So, we used to discuss previously, I always relate back to chapter 9, text 34, where Krishna says, whatever you do, whatever charity you do, do them offering to me. So then that activity itself becomes a spiritual activity. So as Prabhu says, so if you are doing any activity, let it be our day-to-day lives, if you are doing it an offering to Krishna, so conscious means that eventually we take up whatever the result may be. We are not affected by it. We still continue as, okay, this is Krishna's will. I'm still going to continue. But if you are in a material conception of life, what happens is, let's say you are applying for a job, you got rejected, that affects you. Then immediately when you're going to a pub or something happens. So basically that is affecting your consciousness, where you are not performing your duty. There are so many duties, not just applying for a job. You may be a husband, you may be a father, you may be a friend. So continuing those activities as it is, without being affected by the result of, so that determines whether you are accepting this as an offering of, as a blessing of Krishna. That's what I would say.
Because I was asking Shri Maharaj about this. I was doing art, and he said, Krishna is the best, and we're doing this for Krishna, so we have to be the best for Krishna. So we could be the best workers, we could be the best. So you might think spiritual means, I don't really care about my material duty and I just be spiritual on the side, but it means you're the best you could possibly be because you're doing it for Krishna.
Yeah, but usually what we tend to do is we connect the best of us to the result. Let's say you're doing a painting, you are trying to do the best of it. Okay? But at the end of the day, let's say the painting falls and somebody comes and puts something else, we get upset by it. Right? So what is happening is you are trying to do your best, but you already have an output of, okay, this is the result which I am getting. So if you are doing that as a result oriented, then that is not spiritual. You are understanding it. Because the activity of spilling of paint on top is sanctioned by Krishna. Because any activity we do, even a blade of grass to move it, it has to be a sanction of Krishna. So we need to accept that though you are performing an activity to the best of your abilities, the result is not enough.
That's what we always heard about karma, like prarabdha karma, and so is that comes under karma and not about like karma which has already described.
Yeah, because we are not completely pure devotees of the Lord. So it's always a mixture of karma and and sometimes we do spiritual activities. So it's not that we're always in that consciousness. So we have to build upon, okay, maybe 24/7, maybe there will be sparks of 1 or 2 times we start thinking about Krishna and I think, okay, I'm dedicating to this activity. But it has to be 24/7 for that needs to happen. Actually, each day, each minute, we have to start thinking, okay, I'm offering this activity to Krishna, this activity to Krishna. So what happens that is what practice makes, and eventually becomes the platform. Sorry. I just want to add, when we're talking about inaction and action, I had 2 pastimes. first thing which was Hanuman. So when Hanuman goes to in search of Sita Devi, so he has not seen Sita Devi. So all he knows is some descriptions given by Rama. So and for this he goes searches for the entire Lanka. So during this process he notices all the activities performed in Lanka. Lanka is a good place. Everybody is happy. Every person is actually doing their duties. Father is doing a good job. Mother is doing a good job. Everybody is properly trained. So, however, at the end of it, he burns Lanka. Okay, and he comes back, and Jamavanta asks him, what happened? No, I burnt Lanka. No, were the people so bad? No, people were very good. They were doing all their activities, all their duties, etc. And why did you burn? There was something missing, God consciousness. No, Krishna was not there. So what is the use of that community or society which is not God consciousness? So he burned it. Right? So that is, he was seeing, action in action. So the second pastime, I don't know the name of the king. He was on this kingdom where all his dancers were dancing in front of him, and somebody says he's a great devotee of the Lord. Yeah. So then somebody says, go and recite a sloka, chant the names of the Lord. So once somebody goes and recites one sloka of Bhagavatam, he immediately jumps and goes to the ecstasy. Yeah. Basically, he's always uploading the Lord, so that whatever the activity was, he was not connected to that activity, but he was always connected with the Lord. Yeah. So that was he was in action. So maybe in action.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And that was actually.
He became one.
Yeah. But that probably accepted him as spiritual master. Yeah. Right. So, any more questions, reflections, comments?
Yeah, I've had a lot.
Please go ahead.
We talk about duty, what our duty is.
Yeah.
Now, as a mother, I have duties as a mother, right? And sometimes I just don't know what to do, what is the right thing to do. Where do I find the answer to that?
Well, it's always good to be in association of devotees. And regarding particular duty, well, it's just you take guidance from other devotees who are mothers too. So they have their own experiences and things like that. So that might help you out. But regarding motherhood and things like that, well, of course the Vedic literatures are so vast, and there are detailed descriptions on how proper motherhood and other things can be there. But right now, devotees, they put these things into practice, so they can give, the same knowledge with their own experiences. That's called vijnana. So it's wisdom. It's not just knowledge, but it's wisdom. So it's always good to have someone who we can share with. Just like for mothers, the association of mothers is good. So then they can open up, and then that I don't know. I'm not married. Those who are married, they should answer this question.
Just to add on that,
yes.
I guess as a mother, you'll always be worrying whether I'm doing the right thing, or the only thing what can be done is spiritually, what's the mother's duty is to get the kids into Krishna consciousness and then lead the results to the Lord. It's again, if the kids come, they are destined for something. You can only try to give your effort on it, and then that's what Krishna says. You do your duty, leave the results to me. It's the same thing in parenting as well. That's what I really maybe other senior devotees can add on.
You've got a mother right next to you.
You can always refer back to scriptures. So educate. Specific duties of a mother is always described in Manusmriti like this. But for us to easily understand the duties of a mother, we can always link back to the great examples set in the scriptures. Like what Mother Yashoda used to do, what Kunti Devi did. Kunti Devi was, mother of Pandavas. How she helped the Pandavas to grow. So basic idea, as Mamata was suggesting, is the prime duty of a father and mother is to ensure the child doesn't take next birth. You see, I understand that the child doesn't take next birth. So basically, we have to ensure they become spiritually conscious.
In these worlds, though, I mean, I think I'm seen as the random loony for being a spiritual person. There's no spirituality around it. There's no spirituality in school. There's nothing whatsoever.
That's why we are encouraging community. Yeah. So that's why we need to associate. That's why we bring the kids.
Yeah.
Push
But
them.
both of my children are taller than me now. I can't just fling them over my shoulder anymore.
Just in regards to that as well, we also have to understand that we can only do our best. Like our perfection is that we try our best to do something. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that, it's not about the result, it's about the endeavor. So if we're doing our best to try and bring up our children in a Krishna conscious way or a spiritual lifestyle, but they don't turn out to be, firstly, if we've done our best, that's all we can do. But secondly, we may try and give them a foundation, and then they may have some years while they're doing their own thing. But ultimately, we all have to fly our own plane, which means that, at some point, our children will have to make their own decisions. Like we made our own decisions in life. So, our perfection is that we just try our best. And so we try and bring up our children the way we think is correct. And then, that's all we can do, really. Krishna says he's pleased with our endeavour, not necessarily the result.
So, any more?
Can you please explain me about karmic debt, please?
Karmic
Debt.
debt.
Karmic debt.
Oh. Karmic debt, I mean, what exactly do you mean? It's like, what the karma which we have accumulated? Yeah, I mean, there is a verse in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam which says that, if you have got this material body, then it itself says that, we have accumulated so much karma that, we have not nullified it, and because of the result of our karma, we are getting this material body. And as soon as we get a material body, what are the things we undergo is just the reactions of our previous activities. And the body in itself is like a result of our previous activities. And whatever experiences we undergo, you see some guys, some are born rich, some are born poor. Why? Some are born healthy and some are born deficient in nutrients. Why? Some are born very intelligent and some are born, so poor in knowledge. Why? So these are all because of the karma which we have accumulated in our previous life, which is fructified, and it gives us. And whatever pleasures and pains which we undergo, it's just we are undergoing it because there is this debt which we have accumulated. So that's fructified. Yeah. Do you want to ask something?
Like, how can we come out from that?
There is no way to come out of this karma.
Okay.
There is no way,
Okay.
but there is one way.
Okay.
That is devotional service. The one and only way to end the karma. If you see the whole Vedic literature, everywhere, one has to undergo one's karma. There is no way one can escape one's karma except devotional service. He said, Karmani nirdhati kintuja bhakti bhaja. Devotional service is the only thing which can nullify it. In fact, the first symptom of pure devotional service is it frees one from all material distress. And when one thinks that, well, where from this distress comes from, it comes from our previous karmic activities, or sinful activities. And because of this, but the moment you accept devotional service, the moment you engage yourself 100% in devotional service, the first thing which you experience is happiness, and that happiness is because your karma is being nullified. Okay.
I have a question, but I'll probably ask you in private later if that's all right about the.
Okay.
Is that okay? Yeah, because I know we're running.
No, don't bother about time. If it is relevant, then you can take it.
Okay. So yeah, I was kind of debating whether to ask anything, and then the two ladies there were talking about parenting and also perhaps maybe dealing with some feelings of guilt. Perhaps like, are you doing the right thing? You were kind of wondering, am I making the right decision? So sometimes perhaps there's some guilt. Yeah. Yeah. And so I guess the question is, it probably wasn't coincidence maybe that you mentioned there that you know, if your last thoughts that you have when you're dying are of a dog, then perhaps you'll come back as a dog. So you probably remember me mentioning I have a lot of guilt around looking after my dog who passed away, and how just to give you a little bit of context to that, I fed her a vegan diet, and they told me that could have been the reason she died very quickly, very suddenly. So I just have a lot of guilt around that. And sometimes, often it distracts me. In fact, every day it distracts me from my Krishna conscious endeavours, to the point where I can't think of him because I'm just thinking of the guilt constantly. So I don't want to diminish that, you know, as in obviously looking after a child is probably far more important, but maybe there's some relation to that in the sense of the guilt I feel. And so how do we deal with feelings of guilt when they're so overwhelming that it distracts us from our actions to be thinking of Krishna and be remembering him when we're so distracted by those feelings of guilt about something we can't fix because the problem is done and over. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we can see that, you know, Arjuna was in the same situation. Yours is like the post thing, but Arjuna's is like a pre thing, you know. He was afraid that he might have to face that guilt, you know, killing his own family members. Yours is like you felt guilt because you have done something wrong and that happened. So all this guilt and things like that, it affects us because we have forgotten the real nature, the reality of the world. You know, so it's because you're seeing it as a dog, but it's actually spirit soul. So you know what happened is, of course, you know what has happened. Maybe your mistake or it's karmic reaction or anything. You know, we can't exactly say, but you know. But now we need to see it from the perspective of the shastras. That you know, we can't just go back and fix it, but we can at least pray for it. You know that you know. We have done, it's not just one thing, this is just one of the things, you know. We have been living for millions of lifetimes and we have done more guilty things than what, you know, has happened in this birth. Just leave aside, you know. So there are so many guilty things which we did, so we can't just fix them out, but it's now is the time to purify ourselves. Now is the time to see things in the real perspective. Now is the time to see things in relation to Krishna. And, well, you know, when this guilt, other things, that's the first thing. First, Krishna says to Arjuna, is like, first understand you're not this body, and then, you know, happiness and distress are like this, you know, seasons, you know, this sense of guilt, happiness, one must learn how to tolerate them, and if determined in Krishna consciousness. So, of course, you know, we feel guilty, but, and sometimes we also feel overjoyed also. So we need to learn how to find the right balance, how to tolerate both the extremes and be fixed in our devotional service. So that's the whole point of And then others can add.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Thanks. So I just wanted to add to that little point. In one sense, you know, trying to work out our karma, this, that, you know, it's like, it's impossible. We've been in the material world for millions of lifetimes, and trying to work out, oh, sometimes you might, like, you go out on the day and something wrong happens, and you're like, oh, that's because, you know, I did this and that and the next thing, and it's like, most of the time we're receiving the karma from our previous lifetimes. And to try and work it all out, it's just too complicated. But there's a nice verse here, which Srila Prabhupada said should be the guide to all devotees, or all those trying to endeavour in spiritual life. So this is Lord Brahma. He prays, "My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim." So in essence, what that means is that the good reactions are going to come our way. You know, good karma is going to come our way. Bad karma is going to come our way. But in one sense, it's all bad karma. Because even if you get good karma, it means you have to take birth again in the material world to receive the effects of your good karma. But coming back to the material world, we're trying to break this cycle once and for all. So we just tolerate whatever karma comes our way. We continue to pray to Krishna. We continue to serve him. And by performing devotional service, like Vasuśrestha said, it burns off all karma, good karma and bad karma. And all we'll eventually be left with is devotional service. So let me just make my final point. So therefore, trying to work out this, that, the next thing is too complicated. The best thing is just to engage in devotional service. All karma will be free, good and bad karma. And the easiest way to perform devotional service in this age is simply to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So therefore, sometimes it's best not to complicate things. Don't worry about it. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. But I would say now, if there are any other questions afterwards, you know, they can be talked about during Prashadam. We should probably try and move on to the next part of the afternoon.
Okay, so thank you very much for patiently listening. So we'll move on to the next part of the program. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai.
His Grace, Vasuśrestha Dāsa.
Jai.
So, if everyone would like to stand, we're going to have, we're going to sing and dance now. We're going to chant Hare Krishna. We're going to have a little function called Aarti. Generally we have the men on this side and the ladies on that side, and you can sing and dance to your heart's content.